Hi there, it's Bronwyn. Welcome back to Before Dieting. Over the past few episodes, we've been widening the boundary of where we want to investigate weight regain. And to scope out the bigger picture that weight regain lives within, we need to look beyond calories and willpower. And each time we have expanded the boundary, another part of the picture comes into view. We know that lack of food access and agency in childhood, for example, is a major factor in relief eating. So today I'm going to push that boundary further by asking a question that largely gets ignored. And that is why so many women in the first instance avoid investigating their weight problem more thoroughly. I know it's not because they're resistant to change. Quite the opposite. Most women I meet are intelligent and inquisitive and have tried many times to change their eating. So today I want to talk about some of the reasons why going beneath the surface of weight regain can make you anxious. And the first thing to note is that fear doesn't always sound, feel, or look like fear. Sometimes fear is obvious and we know exactly what we're afraid of, like having a fear of heights. But many fears are more subtle or nuanced than that. We may not even call it fear, however, it still affects how we act. For example, fear can show up as procrastination or postponement, where we avoid doing whatever the thing is, but we tell ourselves we'll do it later. Or then there's my preferred option, and that is I'll wait for the perfect time, which strangely enough never seems to arrive. So let me make the connection. How does fear relate to unravelling weight regain? We know that women are not avoiding inquiry because they don't care. From my experience, most women genuinely want to know how to stop their weight from coming back. But there's something else that blocks the way. And I think that something else is the possibility that looking more closely might simply confirm what they have already come to believe about themselves, that they are wholly and solely to blame. And that deep inquiry would really confirm that they are weak, lazy, and lack discipline. And of course, who wants to go there and hear that? So it's best to shut down any inquiry, or better still, never start one. But I should say, I don't think women are necessarily afraid of the blame. Most have been blaming themselves from the start. Yet blame can set off feelings of powerlessness that's hard to avoid. And some women have described that powerlessness to me as they will never figure this problem out, or that even if they find deeper reasons, that they won't be able to do anything about them. And of course, many women who've been blindsided by regular episodes of relief eating say they no longer trust themselves that they can ever solve this problem. And I think it's one of the reasons I think women are more comfortable talking about diets. Because diets feel familiar, because you can do something with them. Someone tells you what to eat, what not to eat, and when to start. So it's this diet familiarity. Even if you've tried 20 of them, you at least know the territory. But when it comes to investigating your own eating, it's different. You're entering the complexity of your life. It's not just about what you're eating. You're looking at experiences, relationships, and patterns that have developed over decades. So it feels much less predictable, much less planned out. I think this is also the reason why so many women tell me they would never consult a dietitian. Yes, they know they could learn something new about nutrition or portion sizes or calorie reduction, but they already know what foods and what type of eating causes their weight. What they're afraid of is a consultation that ends with the words, "You need to stop eating that." Their stress level can go up just thinking about it. Because if you learn early to use food to manage difficult emotions or difficult circumstances, stopping it isn't simply a nutritional decision. It poses a threat to your survival plan. So it's no wonder that it feels frightening. So how do we move forward when the fear is real? I don't think the answer is to pretend it isn't there. In many ways, the fear is a normal response. But I also think that fear, like shame, blocks the important information that you need. It basically says, if you look more closely, you're going to hear things you don't want to hear. And for many women, that can be true. You probably will hear things that are uncomfortable, but it's usually stuff you've been telling yourself for years. You probably already know that certain foods or types of eating appear when life becomes overwhelming. You've also probably figured out that evenings are a more dangerous time for you than mornings. And I'm sure you know when the eating that you're doing has nothing to do with being hungry. None of this is usually surprising. The surprise is what happens next. For years, we've been conditioned to think that recognizing the problem should immediately be followed by fixing it. It's almost as though awareness creates an obligation to act. If you discovered, well, now you know it's chocolate that's causing your weight gain, why don't you stop it? And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we made. Asking, why don't I stop, needs to be replaced with something much more useful. Maybe a question like, how does eating chocolate benefit me? They're two completely different questions. One slams the door shut via judgment, while the other question opens up to the possibility of identifying replacement solutions. Perhaps that's where we've gone wrong for so long. We've treated investigation as though its purpose is to uncover faults and explain why we haven't succeeded, maybe even along with identifying what needs to stop. But investigation can offer the best chance of reframing the problem you're trying to solve. I think deeper inquiry is more about seeing something that's been hidden in plain sight. We've just needed a different angle to view the situation from. And when women begin exploring their own eating, they're often surprised by how familiar everything feels. There aren't dramatic revelations. Instead, there are usually dozens of small moments of recognition. You might start with connecting a childhood memory with how you eat today, or perhaps you begin to understand how a particular way of eating appears in one situation, but it's not a problem for you in another. Now, none of those observations are particularly special on their own, but collectively they start to build the complete picture, not just this one narrow portion of it that's to do with calories, willpower, and what you're going to eat next. So to finish up, there are 3 things I'd like you to take away from today's episode. First is that fear isn't a sign to stop looking or that you're looking in the wrong place, but recognizing that fear is sometimes blocking you from understanding something important. The second thing is not to fall in the trap of believing that just because you understand something, that you should automatically change it. Understanding must come first, and permanent change grows out of that understanding. And perhaps that's why so many attempts at weight loss eventually run out of steam. We've become very good at changing what we eat before we understand why we eat. And the third thing is how we frame the problem leads to different solutions. A diet will say this food is causing your weight gain, stop eating it. While an investigation will show this food is causing your weight gain, but it's solving a problem, so don't stop eating it until you find a replacement. And this reframe leads to a different question. If my eating is solving a problem, what is the problem it's solving? And until that question is answered, asking someone to give up their eating solution can feel impossible. So before you start another diet or plan, ask yourself this. What is it about looking more deeply at your weight regain that feels so difficult? When you're ready to find out, our Waiting for Happiness diagnostics are designed to help you investigate the answer. Thanks for listening. Until next week, take care.